October 1992. French climbers Pierre Béguin and Jean-Christophe Lafayette are making their way up the south face of Annapurna. The altitude, 7,300 meters. The temperature, -30. And for 3 days now, no one has seen them. A few days later, Lafayette will come down, alone, frostbitten, exhausted, barely alive. He'll tell an incredible story, how his partner fell into a crevasse. But the details don't quite add up. Experts will question his account, and Béguin's body will never be found. What really happened up there? Why does Lafayette's version carry so many contradictions? And where is Pierre Béguin now? Some say the truth still lies buried under the ice of Annapurna. Annapurna isn't just a mountain, it's a death sentence. The numbers are brutal. 1 in 3 climbers who attempt it never come back. Its fatality rate is higher than Everest. Among mountaineers, it's known as the Killer 8000er. The south face of Annapurna rises like a vertical wall of ice, 2,500 meters high. Imagine a skyscraper built of rock and frozen snow, collapsing piece by piece. There's no safe ground here. Every step could be the last. Weather shifts in an instant. A clear morning turns into a blizzard. Winds hit 200 kilometers an hour. Visibility drops to nothing. The cold sinks so deep, it freezes your breath inside your chest. In October 1992, the conditions were especially treacherous. Even the rare windows of good weather, the ones climbers depend on for a push to the summit, lasted only a few hours. Meteorologists warned of a powerful cyclone moving in. Most teams abandoned their climbs and headed back to the valley, but Lafayette and Béguin stayed. By day, the south face of Annapurna comes alive with danger. Rocks the size of refrigerators crash down the wall. Ice cracks and collapses in massive slabs. The sound of avalanches echoes for miles, like thunder that never ends. Climbers call it the Stone Lottery. Skill doesn't matter. Caution doesn't matter. If a rock is coming for you, there's no chance. At night, the rockfall stops, but another threat takes over: the cold. -30 at 7,000 meters isn't just a number on a thermometer. It's a slow death. The body begins shutting down the edges to protect the core. Fingers go numb, coordination fades, thoughts turn sluggish. There are no trails here, no signs, no cell service. If something goes wrong, you're on your own. Rescue helicopters can't fly above 6,000 meters. Even if someone spots your distress signal, help won't arrive in time. In high-altitude climbing, there are 2 very different ways to reach the top. The first is the classic style. Teams build a base camp, then establish higher camps along the route. They fix ropes, stockpile food and oxygen. The ascent takes weeks, but it gives climbers time to acclimatize and back each other up. The second is alpine style, fast, light, with no intermediate camps. Climbers carry the bare minimum of gear and food, hoping to push to the summit and back in just 2 or 3 days. It demands extreme fitness, experience, and luck. A single mistake, a sudden shift in weather, and survival becomes nearly impossible. Lafayette and Béguin chose alpine style. Their plan was to scale Annapurna's south face in 72 hours. No safety ropes linking camps, no food caches along the way, no communication with base camp. That decision would be debated for years. The climbing world split in 2. Some saw them as heroes, chasing the purest form of ascent. Others called them reckless adventurers, signing their own death warrants. So, who were these 2 Frenchmen bold enough to take on Annapurna? Pierre Béguin was 42, an engineer by training, methodical, calculated, with 12 years of climbing behind him. His peers called him the strategist. Jean-Christophe Lafayette was the complete opposite: 28, fiery, impulsive, a natural talent of French alpinism. What takes others years to master, he seemed to pick up in weeks. Picture it, the cautious veteran and the daring newcomer, united by one dream: to climb Annapurna's south face on a new route. But their approach to the goal couldn't have been more different. Witnesses recall heated arguments before the climb. Béguin pushed for the safer line. Lafayette wanted to go straight up. What compromise they reached, no one really knows. Their 2 weeks of preparation in base camp went by flawlessly, but they made one fateful choice. They left behind the satellite phone. Lafayette insisted, no extra weight. Later, that refusal would be remembered as a fatal mistake. October 23, 1992. 5 in the morning. The Frenchmen step out of base camp. The weather is perfect, clear, calm, -8 degrees. For the Himalayas, almost tropical. Visibility stretches for miles, the south face glowing in the distance. The first hours go exactly as planned. They move quickly, confidently. By midday, they've already reached 5,500 meters, a strong pace, much faster than expected. Lafayette looks in great shape. Begin keeps up beside him. Over the radio, they check in with base camp. Everything's fine, right on schedule. Their voices sound upbeat, their spirits high. No hint of trouble. By evening, they've climbed to 6,000 meters. They pitch a tiny tent on a narrow ledge. Dinner is freeze-dried food, washed down with hot tea. Their final call to base camp comes at 9:01 p.m. Begin gives their coordinates. Lafayette cracks a joke about French cheese. Day 2, October 24th, 1992. They're up at 4 in the morning. This is where the climb turns technical, near vertical ice walls. Every single move demands absolute focus. One mistake, and you fall into a void that drops for kilometers. But the Frenchmen handle it brilliantly. By evening, they've reached 7,000 meters, an extraordinary result. If they can keep this pace, the summit is just a day away. Their last radio call comes that night. Begin's voice sounds weaker, but still steady. He explains they've adjusted their route, taking a more direct line. Lafayette adds that tomorrow they plan to reach the summit and begin the descent. In base camp, it's noted down. All good, everything on schedule. But within hours, the situation changes completely. Weather stations register a powerful front moving in from the south. Barometric pressure plummets. Winds rise to 40 meters per second. By midnight on October 24th, clouds swallow the south face of Annapurna. Visibility drops to just a few meters. The temperature plunges to -35. A storm so fierce that even in base camp, no one can step outside their tents. They try calling the Frenchmen over the radio. No answer. Maybe the wind drowns it out. Maybe the set froze and failed. Or maybe they're already so high up, the signal simply can't reach. In base camp, they wait. Every hour, another call. The only reply is static and the howl of the storm. The blizzard rages through the night and all through the next day. October 25th becomes a day of anxious silence. Did the Frenchmen get the warning about the storm? Did they manage to find shelter? Or were they caught on the most dangerous stretch of the wall where there's nowhere to hide? The answers come only 5 days later, when a lone figure emerges from the snow. Jean-Christophe Lafayette descending to base camp alone, frostbitten, wasted, but alive. But where is Pierre Begin? Lafayette tells an incredible story. According to him, it happened at dawn on October 25th. They were climbing a particularly difficult section at 7,300 meters. The storm was just beginning, but they had decided to keep pushing for the summit. Begin was in the lead and breaking trail. Suddenly, his anchor ripped free from the ice. The metal pick tore loose, and in an instant, he was gone, plunging into a deep crevasse. Lafayette had no time to react. The official version makes sense. At that altitude, ice turns brittle. Anchors fail. Accidents like this are tragically common in mountains of this scale. But when experts began dissecting the details, strange inconsistencies appeared. Climbers who studied photos from earlier in the expedition noticed the gear. In some shots, one of the safety ropes looked frayed. Could the rope have been damaged beforehand? And if so, was it an accident or something more deliberate? Some even floated a darker possibility. What if the damage was intentional? It sounds like conspiracy theory, but in climbing circles, these stories aren't unusual. The competition to establish new routes can get fierce. First ascents bring glory, and with it, sponsorships, book deals, film rights. But who would have a motive? Lafayette himself? Absurd. Why risk his own life? Someone from the support team? Hard to imagine. Every member had been vetted for years. Or maybe it was simply wear and tear. In extreme cold, metal grows brittle. Ropes lose strength. At 7,000 meters, even the most reliable gear can fail without warning. But the story doesn't end there. As Lafayette struggled to make sense of what happened to his partner, disaster struck again. While attempting to reach the edge of the crevasse, a rock the size of a football came crashing down. It hit squarely on his left forearm. The snap of bone breaking rang out even over the howling wind. In a hospital, it would mean a cast for weeks. At 7,000 meters in the middle of a blizzard, it meant almost certain death. Imagine the scene. He's alone, in the middle of a storm, with only one working arm. Ahead lies a 2-kilometer descent down a vertical wall. Behind him, somewhere in that crevasse, his partner. Alive or dead, he doesn't know. Here, Lafale faces a moral dilemma that has haunted climbers for centuries. Do you try to save your partner and almost certainly die with him? Or do you save yourself, leaving him to his fate? There's no clear answer in climbing ethics. The unwritten code says, never abandon a partner, but it also says, pointless sacrifice is not acceptable. If rescue is impossible, the survivor must return to tell the story. Lafale makes a choice that will be debated for years. He shouts into the crevasse, hoping for a reply. But in the storm, sound doesn't carry more than a few meters. There's nothing. He waits, half an hour, 2. The storm grows worse. The temperature falls to -40. He realizes that if he stays any longer, he'll freeze, and then no one will survive. So he begins the descent. Some would call it the only possible decision. Others, betrayal. The truth, as so often in the mountains, lies somewhere in between. The descent is a nightmare. Normally, climbers rely on an ice axe for breaking in a fall, cutting steps, securing themselves on steep sections. But Lafale's axe was left above, with most of his gear. So, what does he do? He takes apart the tent and uses the aluminum poles as makeshift tools. Thin tubes, never meant to take that kind of strain. But he has no other choice. Every meter costs him immense effort. His left arm useless, his right hand gripping the improvised tool while managing the rope at the same time. The wind knocks him off balance, snow blinds his eyes. And then comes what many would later call a miracle. Lafale loses a crampon, the sharp metal spike strapped to his boot for climbing ice. Without it, descending a frozen wall is almost impossible. He searches frantically in the snow. The odds of finding a tiny piece of metal in a blizzard are almost zero. But after 20 minutes of desperate digging, his hand closes around a familiar shape. The crampon is lying less than a meter from where he lost it. Many climbers say that in moments like this, they feel the presence of something greater, as if the mountain itself decides whether to give you a chance. For Lafale, it seems, the mountain chose to let him live, but ahead still lay 5 days and nights alone. 5 nights on an icy wall where the temperature never rose above -30. 5 days with nothing but the howl of the wind and the crack of ice for company. He descends a few hundred meters each day. Every night he carves out a tiny ledge in the ice, sets up what's left of the tent, and sleeps 2 or 3 hours at most. Any longer, and he might not wake up. Food is almost gone, just a few energy bars and a packet of instant soup. At this altitude, the body burns up to 8,000 calories a day. Lafale is surviving on barely 1,000, but worse than hunger is the solitude. The human mind isn't built for total isolation in such conditions. By the 3rd day, he begins to hear things, voices, music, words carried in the wind. Sometimes he thinks someone is calling his name. He turns, peers into the blizzard. Nothing. Hallucinations or reality. Up here, in that state, the line between them disappears. And maybe, just maybe, it really is Pierre Béguin's voice. Maybe he somehow crawled out of the crevasse, trying to catch up with his partner. That thought haunts Lafale all the way down toward base camp. On the 5th day of his descent, when he no longer believes he'll survive, he stumbles upon a meeting that saves his life. At 6,000 meters, he finds the camp of a Slovenian expedition, 3 climbers from Ljubljana working their way up the classic route from the north side. The Slovenians can't believe their eyes. Before them stands a man who looks like a ghost. Lafale has lost 15 kilos. His left arm hangs limp, his lips cracked from the cold. He can barely stand, yet his eyes burn with some inner fire. Marko Prezelj, the leader of the Slovenian team, later recalled, "At first we thought it was a hallucination. How could someone in that state descend the south face? It should be impossible." They give Lafale hot tea, food, and first aid. His arm is broken in 2 places, several fingers are frostbitten. But he's alive, speaking clearly, recounting what happened. And here comes a detail that will raise endless questions. Prezelj notes in his diary, "The Frenchman said strange things. He claimed he saw a light above, at the spot where his partner fell. A flickering light, as if from a headlamp. What could it mean? If Begin truly died in the fall, where did the light come from? Was Lafayette simply delirious from exhaustion? Or was his partner still alive, trying to signal for help? There's another possibility. What if Lafayette wasn't seeing Begin's headlamp at all, but the reflection of his own gear in the moonlight? At that altitude, in that condition, the mind can play cruel tricks. The Slovenians help Lafayette back to base camp. In the final stretch, they practically carry him the last kilometer and a half. On October 30th, 7 days after the climb began, Jean-Christophe Lafayette finally returns to the world of the living. In base camp, they greet him like a man returned from the dead. No one had believed survival was possible under such conditions. The expedition doctor examines him and shakes his head. With these injuries and frostbite, he should have been gone by the second day. But Lafayette didn't just survive. He accomplished one of the most extraordinary descents in the history of mountaineering. 5 days alone, with a broken arm, almost no food, and he made it down. The question of evacuation comes immediately, but once again, the weather turns. Winds roar at 70 meters per second. The cloud cover is so thick that helicopters can't fly. Lafayette will have to wait another 3 days. During that time, the camp fills with heated debate. Should a rescue team be sent to look for Begin? Lafayette insists. His partner might have survived, might have climbed out of the crevasse. That mysterious light he saw keeps haunting him. Some are willing to take the risk. Experienced Sherpas say they could reach the site, but the expedition leaders refuse outright. Too dangerous, they argue. You can't risk more lives for a chance that's nearly zero. The decision is swift and final. There will be no search. The official reason: weather conditions are too extreme. Any attempt would fail and only lead to more casualties. On November 2nd, the skies finally clear enough for a helicopter to reach base camp. Lafayette is flown to a hospital in Kathmandu and from there back to France. Doctors diagnose multiple fractures, severe frostbite, extreme exhaustion. But he will live. The story of Jean-Christophe Lafayette instantly becomes legend. Mountaineering journals call his descent unprecedented. 5 days alone at 7,000 meters, a vertical descent with a broken arm, nothing like it had ever been recorded. In the bars of Chamonix, old climbers whisper about the details. Why did Lafayette decide to descend so quickly? Was there truly nothing he could do for Begin? And what about that mysterious light he claimed to see? Some began to voice radical theories. What if Begin's fall wasn't an accident? What if a conflict between the partners ended in tragedy? Mountaineering history has seen such cases before. Of course, it's speculation. There's no proof. But the doubts linger, and the further we move from that October of 1992, the more questions arise. In the summer of 2005, a team of Japanese climbers ascended Annapurna's south face. Their route followed almost the same line as the French attempt 13 years earlier. At 7,000 meters, they stopped for the night. The next morning, one of them noticed something glinting in an icy crack. It was an old carabiner, a metal loop used for securing ropes. Next to it lay a length of rope, about a meter long. The items were brought down to base camp, then sent to a lab in Tokyo. The analysis produced a sensational result. The rope hadn't snapped under stress. It had been cleanly cut with a sharp tool. The carabiner also carried strange marks, scratches from metal, as if someone had deliberately weakened it. It looked as though the protection had been tampered with. Even more astonishing, attached to the find was a scrap of fabric, synthetic, bright orange, the very color worn by members of the French expedition in 1992. Lab tests deepened the mystery. Chemically, the fabric matched outdoor gear from the early 90s. But the color didn't match Begin's jacket. His was red. It did, however, match the jacket of another man, Albert Morin, a French climber who had stayed in base camp as the expedition's coordinator. He never set foot on the wall, but here's the strange part. Morin died a year after the Annapurna tragedy, falling into a crevasse in the French Alps under mysterious circumstances. His body was recovered a week later. The official cause? Accident. But think about it. How did a piece of Morin's jacket end up at 7,000 meters on Annapurna? He never climbed the wall, or did he? Could someone else have been wearing his jacket? But why? And more importantly, was his death in the Alps somehow connected to what happened on Annapurna? After the discovery, the mountaineering world erupted in debate once again. Some said it was just coincidence. A scrap of fabric could have landed on the face by chance, carried by wind, avalanche, or icefall. Others saw it as proof of sabotage. Their theory? Someone deliberately weakened the French team's protection, maybe out of rivalry for the first ascent of a new route. Still others believed Morin secretly climbed the wall, either to help or to interfere with his teammates. And it was there, they claim, that the chain of events leading to tragedy began. But there's an even darker version. What if La knew the truth all along, but never revealed it? What if he carried that secret to his grave? Because Jean-Christophe Lafayette himself died in 2003 on Makalu. Officially, an accident, an avalanche. Yet some climbers whisper about odd details surrounding his death. He was climbing alone, which was unlike him. After Annapurna, he always went with partners. Why break his own rule? His body wasn't found for 2 months. The cause of the avalanche was never determined. There were no signs of fresh snowfall that day. And yet, he lay buried under a thick layer of snow and ice. Some believe Lafayette couldn't live with the weight of what happened on Annapurna. Maybe he really could have saved Begin, but didn't. Or maybe he knew who was truly responsible. Or perhaps he himself became a victim of the same forces that took Begin and Morin. It sounds like conspiracy, but in the world of high-altitude climbing, money and fame have sometimes cost lives. Annapurna remains silent. The ice wall keeps its secrets, but one thing is clear. The story of October 1992 is far from over. Every new discovery raises more questions than answers. That's where we'll leave it. I'm just getting started, and your feedback matters a lot. Let me know in the comments what worked for you in this story and what could be better. I read every single comment, and I do my best to reply. And now, put yourself in Lafayette's place. Would you have risked everything to try and save your partner, or walked away, knowing you'd carry that memory for the rest of your life? Hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned. There are many more stories ahead for us to explore together.